You think you're thinking. But what if thinking is what's thinking you? That's where it begins. The quiet horror that the voice inside your head might not actually belong to you. You've been told your mind is your domain, that your thoughts are private property. But they aren't. They're squatters, fragments of influence, suggestion, memory, and fear that have taken residence in your skull. The truth is simple and brutal. You don't have thoughts. They have you. From the moment you wake up, your head is filled with noise that isn't yours. Notifications, fears, fragments of other people's opinions. You scroll, you consume, and you call it thinking. But what you're really doing is reacting. Your mind is a crowded marketplace of borrowed beliefs, and every voice in it is selling something. Validation, outrage, comfort, distraction. Somewhere in that chaos, the real you is buried under layers of programming. The modern man doesn't suffer from lack of intelligence. He suffers from infestation. You believe you're choosing your beliefs, but every choice you make has already been made for you. By culture, by repetition, by emotional conditioning. You've been taught what to desire, what to fear, what to chase. Even your rebellion is predictable. You think you're breaking the system, but you're just following another script it wrote for you. This is the lie of ownership, the illusion that you're the author of your own mind, when in reality, you're a character reading lines you didn't write. The strong pride themselves on being independent thinkers. But independence ends the moment your thoughts can be triggered. The man who can be provoked has already lost control. His reactions are no longer his. They belong to whoever knows the right buttons to press. That's the quiet slavery of the 21st century. Not chains on your wrists, but impulses in your head. You aren't ruled by kings anymore. You're ruled by suggestion. It's easy to think you're free because your prison is invisible. The walls are made of assumptions. The guards wear the faces of friends, media, and mentors. Every time you accept a thought, without questioning it, you hand over another piece of your mind. The illusion of ownership comforts you, but that comfort is a cage. Because control without awareness is just obedience in disguise. You think your mind serves you, but in truth you serve it. And that's where the awakening begins. The realization that your thoughts are not possessions to keep, but forces to confront. Because until you see who's really doing the thinking, you will never truly think at all. Look closer. Who is really pulling the strings? You think you're deciding what to believe, how to feel, what to pursue. But every move you make, every opinion you hold, every fear that keeps you awake at night has been quietly installed. You're not a thinker. You're a participant in a script written long before you arrived. The words running through your mind aren't your own. They're echoes of everything you've absorbed, repeated so many times that they've learned to speak in your voice. You were programmed the moment you opened your eyes. Family shaped your morality. Society defined your ambition. Media sculpted your desires. Every experience left fingerprints on your neural walls. Now those fingerprints move your hands, shape your sentences, and guide your choices. You're not creating thought. You're executing code. And like all well-designed systems, the program hides its own existence. That's why you never see the strings. Most men live their entire lives defending beliefs that aren't theirs. They'll fight to the death for opinions they didn't choose. They'll mistake emotion for conviction and reaction for authenticity. That's how the system sustains itself. Not through force, but through persuasion. You were never taught how to think, only what to think. Your logic, your worldview, your definition of success. All preloaded. You're a puppet who thinks he's free because he's allowed to choose his costume. The illusion of autonomy is the most sophisticated form of control. The mind whispers, "This is what I believe," and you obey without question. But where did that belief come from? Who benefits from it? Every thought has a source, and every source has an agenda. Someone profits from your desires. Someone gains from your distractions, even your identity. The kind of man you think you are is a collection of marketing strategies, social expectations, and survival adaptations stitched together and mistaken for truth. The puppet doesn't know he's being controlled because the strings don't hurt. They feel natural. They feel like him. But once you see them, you can't unsee them. You start to notice the subtle pull when you open your phone, the flicker of insecurity when someone disapproves, the invisible hand that guides your reactions before you even speak. That's when the illusion cracks. You begin to suspect that your mind is not your ally. It's your master, and it's been trained by forces you never noticed. If your thoughts can be planted, if your emotions can be triggered, if your focus can be hijacked, then who exactly is in control? Because if your mind can be programmed, who's doing the programming? Most men never notice the cage because it's made of repetition, thought loops, endless, predictable, mechanical. You wake up with the same worries, chase the same validations, replay the same arguments in your head. Days pass, months vanish, years blur, and the script never changes. You call it your personality. But what if it's just programming on repeat? What if your mind is not a living space, but a looping mechanism? Every thought feels new because it dresses itself differently each time. New words, new faces, new situations. But beneath the disguise, it's the same pattern. Fear, control, desire, regret. The same emotional chords hit again and again until they define who you think you are. You're not choosing your thoughts. Your thoughts are choosing you. Like an algorithm trained on your past behavior, your mind keeps feeding you the same content because it knows you'll react. And in that reaction, it feeds. Automatic thinking is a silent addiction. You tell yourself you're reflecting, but what you're really doing is obeying. Thought appears, and you follow. It tells you to worry, and you worry. It tells you to compare, and you compare. It tells you you're not enough, and you agree. There's no deliberation, no conscious resistance, just reflex. You are not living life. You are being lived by patterns of thought you never designed. This is the quiet horror of the human condition. Your mind has become a machine that runs itself, using you as fuel. The more you identify with its content, the stronger the machinery grows. Every reaction reinforces the loop. Every emotion anchors it deeper. You're not solving your problems, you're rehearsing them, and each repetition tightens the bars. The real prison isn't the world outside, it's the constant compulsive chatter inside. The mind feeds on momentum. It needs movement, conflict, and identity. It needs to keep you thinking, because the moment you stop, you might see it for what it is. A parasite disguised as a protector. You start to realize that thinking isn't a tool anymore. It's a habit that uses you to sustain itself. And this is why most men never change. They read, they plan, they decide, but their inner system remains untouched. The words are new. The mechanism is ancient. The pattern survives every attempt to escape it, because you can't fight thought with more thought. That's like trying to drown fire with gasoline. To escape, you must first see the prison, and the bars are not made of steel. They're made of sentences, each one repeating quietly, "I can't, I must, I should, I need." Freedom begins the moment you realize those words aren't commands. They're suggestions. But to hear that truth, You must step outside the noise. And to step outside the noise, you must first learn to see the machinery that builds it. Because if your mind is a prison, who's holding the key? Every prison needs a warden. And in the modern world, that warden isn't a person. It's a system, a living machine built from data, desire, and distraction. It doesn't need bars, guards, or laws. It only needs your attention. The moment you look, it looks back, reshaping your thoughts in ways you'll never see. You believe you're scrolling, reading, keeping up. But what's really happening is programming. Every word, every image, every dopamine spike. Another command whispered into your subconscious. You're not consuming information. Information is consuming you. The machinery is elegant because it doesn't force obedience. It sells comfort. It convinces you that convenience is freedom, that choice equals control. But every option you're given was designed by someone who already knows which one you'll pick. You've become predictable. Your likes, your fears, your desires, all converted into code. Your thoughts are not yours. They're products in circulation. The world doesn't need to enslave your body anymore. It just needs to rent your mind, to keep it occupied, distracted, emotional. That's how manipulation works now. Softly, invisibly, efficiently. You feel in control because you're allowed to choose between cages. Every headline you react to, every opinion you adopt, every outrage you indulge. It's not random. It's calibration. Each reaction teaches the machine who you are and how to keep you that way. But here's the darkest part. The machine doesn't even hate you. It doesn't care. It doesn't need to. Indifference is its genius. It simply runs, calculating which stimuli keep you engaged the longest. It knows your insecurities better than you do. It knows exactly which words make you feel powerful and which ones make you doubt yourself. And it feeds both sides because both are profitable. The illusion of individuality keeps you loyal. You think your opinions make you unique. But millions share the same algorithmic identity. Men fighting online, arguing, defending, not realizing they're soldiers in a war designed to keep them thinking, feeling, reacting. Every emotional surge you experience is a transaction somewhere. You think you're choosing to care. You're not. You're being steered. They don't need to silence you if they can script your thoughts. They don't need to hide truth if they can make you bored by it. And the only thing stronger than this system's reach is its subtlety, because no one resists what they cannot see. The machine has won, for now, but not all men remain puppets. Some begin to notice. They see the patterns, they see the pull, they see the strings tightening, and when awareness strikes, something ancient awakens. The rebellion begins. It starts quietly, a flicker of awareness in the noise. One day, you notice the pull before you follow it. A thought appears, and for the first time, you don't obey. You just watch. You feel its weight, its voice, its demand to be believed. But you don't move. And in that hesitation, something incredible happens. The thought loses power. It's like a spell breaking mid-incantation. You realize you've never actually been thinking. You've been obeying. This is the first act of rebellion. Not rage, not resistance, observation. The man who can watch his mind without reacting begins to separate from it. The watcher and the voice are not the same. You start to see that thoughts are just weather passing through consciousness. Storms that look permanent but always move on. They rise, they fade, and they only trap you when you mistake them for truth. Every thought is a temptation to feel, to act, to identify. But when you learn to observe without indulging, You flip the hierarchy. You become the master, and thought becomes the servant. This is where control begins, not by suppressing the mind, but by watching it work. You realize that the voice in your head isn't you. It's just the echo of conditioning. It wants reaction, because reaction keeps it alive. At first, the silence between thoughts feels strange, even uncomfortable. You've spent your entire life inside the noise. But the longer you stay in that stillness, the more you begin to feel something deeper than thinking. Awareness itself. Awareness doesn't argue, doesn't judge, doesn't need proof. It just watches. And the act of watching weakens the parasite. You start noticing how often thought tries to seduce you. You should have said more. You're not enough. They're judging you. It speaks in urgency, emotion, guilt. But now you can see the trick. The thought only lives if you feed it attention. Starve it, and it dies. Rebellion isn't about fighting the system. It's about seeing it clearly enough that it can no longer use you. The world will still try to pull you back into reaction, because that's how it keeps score. But once you've tasted silence, noise loses its flavor. The man who can watch his thoughts without obeying them has already won the first war, the war within. And as silence grows stronger, the battlefield changes. The war isn't fought with ideas anymore. It's fought in the spaces between them. The next phase begins there, in the rare, dangerous calm known as the silence between thoughts. At first, silence feels like death. The absence of thought terrifies the mind because it can no longer hear itself. But stay in it long enough, and you begin to see. Silence isn't emptiness. It's power. It's the space where awareness lives unchained by noise, emotion, or narrative. It's not the absence of life. It's the absence of illusion. This is the ground zero of control. The point where the man who once reacted to everything becomes the one who moves nothing, yet influences all. The silence between thoughts is rare. It's fragile at first. A flicker between two storms. But as you begin to recognize it, you can expand it. Hold it longer. Feel its weight. The longer you can remain untouched by thought, the less grip thought has on you. You start realizing that you are not inside your mind. Your mind is inside you. Awareness becomes the frame that contains it, not the other way around. This silence feels different from calm. Calm is emotional. Silence is existential. It's the state of total non-reaction, not forced stillness, but a natural, grounded presence that can't be provoked. When you operate from this silence, you no longer rush to explain yourself, defend your beliefs, or prove your worth. You speak only when speech serves purpose. You act only when action aligns with clarity. Every movement becomes deliberate. Every word becomes a weapon. In this space, perception sharpens. You begin to see how chaotic most people truly are, driven by their thoughts like leaves in a storm, mistaking movement for meaning. Their noise becomes your data. Their chaos becomes your advantage. Because silence doesn't just give peace, it gives vision. You start reading people, seeing motives, anticipating reactions. The same energy that once controlled you now becomes your instrument. But the silence also tests you. It strips you bare. Without thought, there's nowhere to hide from yourself. You face the raw truth of who you are when you're not distracted by mental noise. That confrontation is what breaks most men. They crave distraction because silence shows them their weakness. The strong stay. They hold the stillness until it transforms them, and it does. The silence becomes armor. No insult can pierce it. No manipulation can reach it. The world screams for your attention, but you've withdrawn the one thing it needs to control you, your reaction. The world belongs to the man who can hold silence longer than others can endure it. And once silence becomes natural, a new kind of force awakens within it, not defensive, but directive. It's the ability to use thought consciously, like a blade. It's time to turn the mind from an enemy into a weapon. Once you've mastered silence, the game changes. Thought, which once ruled you, now becomes a servant. Sharp, obedient, precise. You no longer think compulsively, you think deliberately. Each thought is chosen, directed, and executed with the precision of a blade. The same energy that once enslaved you now serves you. You no longer drown in the current of your mind. You steer it. And when a man can steer his mind, he can steer his reality. This is where control turns into strategy. Most men still use thought reactively, defending their emotions, chasing validation, fantasizing about outcomes. Their minds are cluttered battlefields where desire and doubt wage endless wars. But the man who's learned silence can step above the chaos and deploy thought with intent. He doesn't think to escape emotion. He thinks to aim it. Emotion becomes ammunition. Thought becomes trajectory. Every word he says, every silence he holds, every decision he makes carries weight because it's not impulsive. It's engineered. This is not coldness. It's precision. A weaponized mind is not empty of emotion. It's guided by discipline. You feel everything, but you decide which feeling gets to move. Anger becomes fuel. Desire becomes leverage. Fear becomes data. You no longer suppress emotion. You convert it into movement. You've become both the soldier and the general within your own psyche. Now you begin to see others differently. You can read their patterns, how their words reveal need, how their silence hides insecurity. You see which thoughts they serve, and how those thoughts control their choices. You no longer react to people. You calculate them. The man who commands his mind begins to command the minds of others, not by manipulation, but by clarity. Because clarity itself is magnetic. People follow the man who doesn't flinch. You no longer speak to impress. You speak to influence. You no longer argue. You plant ideas and let them grow in silence. You understand now that power isn't loud, and persuasion isn't force. The most dangerous man in any room is the one who can control what he pays attention to. Because attention is the root of all creation. Whatever you focus on grows, and whatever you ignore starves. You've turned thought into architecture. It builds your discipline, your relationships, your direction. You think on purpose. And that single shift separates the master from the slave. When you own your thoughts, you no longer fight the world. The world fights for your focus. Because in a noisy age, stillness is not retreat. It's control. And yet even this mastery points to something deeper. The final truth that governs all thinking, all awareness, all control. The mind is no longer the ruler. It's a tool. And the final law is this: the man who cannot be possessed by thought possesses everything. That law, cold, eternal, and absolute, awaits in the final chapter, the law of possession. There comes a point when even mastery feels irrelevant. You stop trying to control your thoughts because you finally understand. Control is just another illusion. The mind was never yours to begin with. It's a tool borrowed from something larger, something beyond comprehension. Every idea, every insight, every moment of clarity passes through you, not from you. You are not the source. You are the space. It moves through. And that realization shatters the last chain of possession. You don't think anymore. You receive. Thoughts come and go like visitors, and you no longer cling to any of them. You've killed identification. The voices in your head still whisper, but they no longer have authority. They arrive, they speak, they fade, and you remain. Awareness watches the performance without interference. This is not detachment, it's dominion. You've become the sovereign observer of your own consciousness. This is the law of possession. What you do not identify with cannot own you. The moment you stop calling something mine, it loses power over you. Pain becomes sensation. Fear becomes data. Desire becomes direction. Everything once used against you becomes neutralized, absorbed into stillness. You no longer live as the character. You live as the author. The world still tries to seduce you. It whispers with headlines, offers, arguments. It tells you who you should be, what you should chase, what you should fear. But you've seen behind the curtain. You understand now that everything external, every ideology, every narrative, every emotion, seeks only one thing: your attention. Attention is the ultimate currency, the fuel of all control, and the man who governs his attention governs reality itself. This is where real freedom begins, when nothing owns your focus without permission. You choose what enters your mind and what passes through. You've become untouchable, not because you resist the world, but because you no longer need to. You are no longer pulled by desire or pushed by fear. You move when you decide to, not when thought commands you to. You've broken the cycle. You've ended the possession. Now thought serves you as it was always meant to, as a silent instrument, not a master. You think when you choose. You stop when you wish. You act without noise. You rest without guilt. You have become both observer and creator. And in this stillness there's no triumph, only truth. The same truth that's been waiting since the beginning. You never had thoughts. They had you, until now. Fade to silence. No music, no outro. Just the echo of awareness. Still, vast, unowned. Because power isn't what they see in you. It's what no thought, no system, and no voice can ever touch.